My cabin was a small, simple place, deep in the woods, far from any town. It stood alone, surrounded by towering pines and thick snow, a world apart from the rush and noise of civilization. The only road in was a narrow, winding track that disappeared beneath the drifts each winter, leaving me truly isolated. I went there to be alone, to hear the wind in the pines, not the noise of people. The forest was my companion, its voice a constant hush, sometimes a howl, but always honest. Out here, I could breathe, think, and let the world fall away. The cabin was dark wood, one big room, a small kitchen, a tiny bedroom, and a stone fireplace at its heart. The walls held the scent of old pine and smoke, and every creak in the floorboards was familiar, comforting. My days were quiet, coffee at sunrise, the steam curling in the cold morning air as the first light crept through frosted glass. I'd sit by the window, watching the forest wake, feeling the peace settle in my bones. Chopping wood, reading by the window, walking the forest trails, these were my rituals. Each task was a meditation, a way to mark the hours and keep the cold at bay. The rhythm of my days was slow, deliberate, and deeply satisfying. The silence was thick, broken only by birds or the rustle of a squirrel. Sometimes the wind would carry the distant call of an owl or the soft thud of snow falling from a branch. It was a living silence, full of small, secret sounds. I felt safe, part of the forest, protected by routine. I checked my garden, filled the woodshed, split logs, preparing for winter. Each chore was a promise to myself that I would endure the cold months ahead, that I belonged here. Evenings meant firelight and the smell of wood smoke. The flames danced in the hearth, casting long shadows on the walls, and I'd lose myself in their warmth, grateful for the shelter and the solitude. I was alone, but not lonely. The quiet was a comfort, a gentle presence that wrapped around me as night fell. I found peace in the stillness, a sense of belonging I'd never known in the city. But as the days shortened, the quiet changed. The sun dipped lower each afternoon, and the woods seemed to draw closer, pressing in with the early darkness. Shadows grew long, the silence heavier, almost watchful. The forest that once felt like a friend now seemed to hold its breath, waiting for something unseen. Sometimes I'd shiver at the window, feeling unseen eyes. The darkness outside pressed against the glass, and I wondered what might be moving just beyond the reach of the firelight. I told myself it was just the season, just my imagination. I tried to laugh it off, to focus on the familiar, but a chill crept in that had nothing to do with the cold. I was wrong. The quiet was not empty. It was full of things I could not see, of secrets the forest kept hidden beneath the snow and shadows. Something was waiting in the woods. I could feel it, patient and silent, just beyond the edge of my world, and it was getting closer. The quiet before the cold was over. Something else was coming with the night. The first snow came silently, turning the world white, as if a painter had swept a brush across the land overnight. Each flake drifted down, soft and slow, erasing the colors of autumn and covering every branch, every rooftop, in a perfect, untouched layer. The road to town vanished beneath the snow, its familiar path lost under a thick, unbroken blanket. Tire tracks and footprints disappeared, leaving only a smooth, endless white that made the world feel both beautiful and unreachable. I was truly alone now, the snow muffling all sound. Even the wind seemed to hush, as if the world itself was holding its breath, waiting for something to break the stillness. The forest's usual life vanished. No birds, no squirrels, just a deep, pressing silence. The trees stood motionless, their branches heavy with snow, and the absence of movement made the woods feel almost otherworldly. Days blurred into gray and white, the sky flat, the snow blinding. Time lost its meaning as the landscape became a never-ending expanse of cold and quiet, stretching on as far as I could see. I spent hours by the fire, watching snow fall, the wind howling like a lost animal. The flames danced on the walls, casting long shadows that flickered and shifted, making the cabin feel both safe and strangely haunted. The cabin felt fragile, adrift in a white sea. Surrounded by endless snow, it was a tiny island of warmth and light, but also of isolation. The woods were unrecognizable, strange shapes under the snow. Shadows twisted into forms I didn't remember, and familiar landmarks vanished beneath the drifts, making the forest feel like a place I'd never known. Isolation played tricks on my mind. I talked to the fire, stared out the window for hours. Sometimes I thought I saw movement in the distance, but it was always just the wind or a shifting shadow. The cold seeped in, and routine became my anchor. I wrapped myself in blankets, layered my clothes, and tried to keep the chill at bay, clinging to small comforts as the days grew longer and darker. I shoveled paths, hauled wood, kept the fire alive. Each task was a ritual, a way to mark the passing of time and remind myself that I was still here, still surviving. The fire was my only warmth, my only light. Its crackle was a comfort, a reminder that life still flickered in the heart of winter's darkness. But as I worked, the woods felt menacing, as if they were watching, waiting. The silence pressed in, heavy and expectant, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something unseen was drawing closer. The feeling of being watched grew stronger every day. My nerves frayed, and every creak of the cabin or gust of wind outside set my heart racing. The silence was no longer peaceful. It was a warning. I was not alone. Something was out there, hidden in the endless white, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. After a heavy snowfall, I noticed the woodshed door was open, a black rectangle against the snow. I always latched it, always checked. The wind couldn't have moved it. Heart pounding, I trudged through the snow. The latch wasn't broken, just slid back. Someone, or something, had opened it. Inside, nothing was disturbed. No footprints in the snow but mine. No animal could do this, and no person could come and go without a trace. I closed and latched the door, feeling a new, cold fear. I looked over my shoulder all the way back to the cabin. The woods seemed darker, the trees leaning in. I locked the cabin door for the first time. My sanctuary felt like a cage. I didn't know if I was locking something out or if I was already trapped inside with it. The fear was real now. The woodshed door was a message. I was being watched, and the watcher was close, much too close. The next day, I noticed something odd. The stool on my porch had been moved. It wasn't where I'd left it the night before, and I was sure of that. It now sat heavy and silent at the far end of the porch, tucked out of the wind, as if someone had carefully placed it there for a reason I couldn't understand. The snow was fresh, a thin dusting covering the boards, but there were no footprints, no sign of anyone or anything having crossed the porch. Then, as I glanced at the door, I saw the curtain by the window had been slightly pulled back, just enough for someone to peer inside. I always closed it tightly at night, making sure no one could see in. Now it hung ajar, as if someone had been watching. These were small things: a door left slightly open, a stool out of place, a curtain drawn back. But together, they formed a pattern that was impossible to ignore. They were quiet messages, subtle warnings. I am here. I can get close. I can reach you, even in your sanctuary. The uneasy feeling of being watched, which had haunted me for days, was now a certainty. I could feel eyes on me, just beyond the glass. Someone, or something, was playing a game with me, moving things, leaving signs, testing my nerves. It was as if I was being taunted. I checked every lock, every window, every inch of the cabin, searching for any clue, any sign of entry. But I found nothing out of place except what I'd already seen. The snow outside was smooth and untouched, a perfect white blanket. No tracks, no disturbances, just silence and cold. It was as if a ghost haunted me, one that could move solid things, one that left no trace except for the unsettling rearrangement of my world. As the sun set and the light faded behind the trees, a deep sense of dread crept in. The shadows grew longer, and the air felt heavier. The darkness outside was no longer just the absence of light. It had become a hiding place, a shroud for whatever was out there. I knew that when the sun disappeared completely, I'd be left alone in the dark with it again, whatever it was, waiting and watching. My fear grew with every small thing out of place. Each object shifted, each curtain moved, was a reminder that I was being hunted, that I was not alone. And the game was just beginning. Night was coming, and with it, the promise of more things out of place, more signs that I was not safe. The strange events wore me down. I doubted my mind, jumped at every sound, checked locks obsessively. My peaceful routine was gone, replaced by fear. My fear grew, wrapping around my heart. I stopped going for walks, only venturing out for wood or to shovel snow. The cabin was my only defense, but it felt weak. Sleep became impossible. Every creak, every whisper of wind became a threat. I saw the woodshed door, the moved stool, the gap in the curtain every time I closed my eyes. I was pale, sleepless, hollowed out by fear. The confident person who came for solitude was gone. I was a shadow, a cornered animal. I was trapped, and whatever was out there was watching, waiting. I was its prey. The worst night came with a blizzard, the wind screaming, the cabin shaking. I tried to read by the fire, but the storm's chaos made my skin crawl. Around midnight, I heard it, a slow, heavy thudding on the porch. Thud, 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 closer, closer. My heart hammered. Someone or something was outside in the storm. I crept to the door, listening. Under the wind, I heard scratching, slow, deliberate, like claws. Not frantic, but patient, terrifying. I backed away, stifling a scream. Then, a voice, low, guttural, whispering my name, woven into the wind. The sound pierced me, cold as ice. I scrambled to the far wall, clutching my blanket, listening to the storm, the scratching, the whisper that knew my name. The night was alive, and it had come for me. I was trapped, paralyzed by fear. The thing I dreaded was real. It was at my door, and it wanted in. I could only wait for dawn, and hope to survive the night. The scratching at the door stopped, the whisper faded, but I was too scared to move. The fire burned low, the cabin grew cold. Then, a new sound, scraping, from inside, from the kitchen floor. The cellar door. Something was moving down there, dragging itself across the dirt. I stood over the door, feeling vibrations through my feet. The thing was inside now, under my floor. The cabin was no longer a shield. It was a trap. I couldn't face what was down there. I piled heavy things on the cellar door, pots, books, cans, building a barricade. The scraping stopped. Silence returned, but it was a waiting silence. The thing below was listening. It knew I was there, and it was waiting. I didn't sleep. I sat facing the kitchen, watching the barricaded cellar door. The fire burned all night, the only light against the dark. I built more barricades, tables against doors, chairs under knobs. I checked every lock, sealing myself in. It felt less like a fortress, more like a tomb. Dawn brought relief, but no comfort. The snow outside was pristine, no tracks, no sign of the night's terror. But the barricades were proof it was real. I stayed inside, too afraid to go out, watching the woods, glancing at the cellar door. The day was long, filled with tension. The sun only measured time until darkness returned. I was a prisoner, waiting for the monster to return. I didn't know if I could survive another night. The fear was constant, unyielding. I was trapped in my own home. I stayed 2 more days, sleepless, barely eating, waiting for the snow to melt. The sounds never returned, but the feeling of being watched never left. I knew the thing was still out there, or beneath me, waiting. On the 3rd day, a neighbor arrived on a snowmobile. He saw my face and knew something was wrong. I packed a bag, avoided the cellar, and left without looking back. The cabin looked peaceful in the sun, but I knew its secret. I never returned, selling it from afar. City noise became my comfort, keeping the silence at bay. But I was changed, haunted by that winter. A part of me is still in that cabin, frozen in fear. I am always cold now, a chill that never leaves. I still dream of the whisper that knew my name. I'll never know what haunted me, and maybe that's the most frightening part. Some silences are better left undisturbed.